My mother inherited our cottage on Rendellville Road from Miriam Sanders, who was a childhood friend of my mother growing up in Derry, New Hampshire, and used to babysit for her 7 children that she was one of. Miriam taught at Rosemary Hall in Connecticut. She taught chemistry, and she would spend her summers in Randolph. She was the epitome of a spinster school teacher. She was resolutely single, prematurely white-haired, strongly opinionated, and a tad eccentric. She went to Radcliffe College, as did my mother, and she firmly believed that the only colleges worth attending were Ivy Leagues and what were then seven sister schools. And that was an opinion she shared with anyone she met who had made the mistake of going to any others. My family would spend 2 or 3 weeks every summer in Miriam's cottage, and by the time I came along, about 1950, she decided the house wasn't big enough for all of us. So she added a two-story extension, which added 2 full baths to the house. So with 3 full baths, we still were firmly admonished that no one under any circumstances was to flush a toilet before 8:30 in the morning. She liked, by the time I got to know her, she wasn't that much of a hiker. And in fact, I'm not entirely convinced she was ever that much of a hiker, but she was a big fan of other people hiking. She was a longtime treasurer of the RMC, and she liked our family because when we were here, we'd hike every day it didn't rain. And as the youngest person in the family, I used to pray for rain so we could stay home, play games, and put together wooden puzzles, which she made in her shop with her jigsaw. She would shuttle us back and forth from hikes, make our lunches, and at least once she was my babysitter. She used to love to tell a story about the time when I was, I think, 4. And the family was hiking up Mount Washington, and I was deemed too young for that. So I stayed home with her, and she says that I told her that it was a 3.5-mile hike, which was, if it's 3.5 miles, it's 3.5 miles up, and it's 3.5 miles back, and that's too far. A sentiment that I'm increasingly coming to agree with. Despite being an inveterate Anglophile, we still have the complete works of Winston Churchill on our shelves. Despite being an Anglophile, she owned a French car, Peugeot, which she drove with abandon. And she had a French poodle, which would sit in her lap while she was driving with its head out the window, which added a certain flair. Her guiding principles were speed and frugality. So when she was going downhill, she would turn off the engine so she could save gas. She said, in the war, everyone in the hill did that. Well, the war was over some time. She could get from the foot of our driveway halfway through Gorham before having to turn the engine back on. And then when we drove home from Pinkham Notch, she would invariably take Dolly Copper Road, which was both frugal and fast because you save gas because it's definitely shorter. But to prove that it was also faster, she'd drive at full speed on that narrow, winding, and of course unpaved road. And when we were getting ready for this, my brother reminded me of the time that, because he was also rather impatient, so if she got behind somebody, she'd try to pass them. The time where she tried to pass a gentleman in front of us and failed and ended up in a ditch. And he fortunately stopped and came back and pulled us to safety and then pulled aside so we could pass because he didn't want to be in front of us. But the thing that always we found remarkable was what this guy was wearing. It was the middle of August, and he was wearing a dark suit and tie and a fedora and dark sunglasses. And so in the family lore, we always called that the incident of Miriam's run-in with the FBI.
Very good.
Miriam's a colorful character was one of the things that kept me looking forward to coming back every summer to Randolph.